We talk about how making mistakes allows us to grow. For example, I have like 2 quotes that we focus on in my classroom. Like one is, does your brain hurt? Good, that means we're learning. And then the other one is, we can do hard things. So our goal is to progress and understand it this much better every single day.
The middle school dip means that students tend to dip in their mathematical attainment as they reach middle school. Economically disadvantaged students, those dips are sort of exasperated. So the purpose of this project was to identify highly effective teachers and to learn from their practices, to interview them and understand what are these effective mathematics teaching practices.
Drier 6 months that we would use the first 6 months.
And so I worked with a data consultant at ULEAD, and the data consultant used statistical procedures to identify the most effective teachers in Title I schools in relation to their students' mathematics achievement growth on the RISE assessment.
Ty knew he wanted to look at the teachers with the highest growth in middle grade math. From there, he deferred to me what that would look like. Outlier identification was a 2-step process. First, we applied search filters to refine our Utah teacher sample so we could curate the sample we wanted for this analysis. Specifically, we looked at teachers who taught at Title I schools and were employed for each of the 3 years of this analysis. We also looked at teachers who taught between grades 6 and 8 and had a minimum classroom size of 20 students. And then our outcome variable was student growth percentile on the RISE math assessment. Once we refined our parameters and had the data set we wanted, the second step was applying statistical methods. Specifically, for each year, we calculated the percentile of growth for each teacher. To be included as an outlier, they needed to meet the 90th percentile or better for each of the 3 years.
ULEAD has resources. They have these big data sets of student assessment data, of teacher level data, of school level data. And then here at the university, we have assets in relation to our expertise in research. So it was a great partnership between myself and ULEAD. And through that statistical process, we identified 7 teachers. And so my role within the project was to interview these teachers and understand and identify patterns in their instruction, in their mathematics instruction. What made them effective teachers? What led to this growth within their students? I identified themes across 3 categories. So the first category was instructional planning. So I asked teachers about how they planned instruction. I asked them about how they delivered instruction when students are present. And then I asked them about how they assess students. So how do they gather data, and then how do they let that data inform their teaching? So in the first category, instructional planning, there were two themes or patterns that I found. So the first one was team planning. So this meant that teachers used time within their day to plan with another teacher. And this really just relates to the old saying that 2 heads are better than 1. So teachers were able to be more creative in their lesson planning, and they were able to create more effective products.
As a team, we are really strong. We look at our data, and if students are not performing the way we would expect by the end of that week, we will reteach. We look at that. What key factor did we maybe miss as teachers that we didn't hit as hard as we could have? And we have an intervention time during the day that helps us go back and reteach and refocus based on the skills the kiddos have missed.
Ooh, only one of them has time. Good. Camden.
They all have the median of 15.
Ooh, do they all have a median? So I'll check really fast.
Yes.
You guys agree with that?
Yeah.
How do you know that? Can you talk about it with your partners really fast?
The second theme I developed related to planning was mapping the curriculum. So that means that teachers took the summer and throughout the school year to map out the standards that they wanted to emphasize. They made sure the relative weight of the Utah core standards was the same as the weight that they were giving in their teaching. The second category was instructional delivery. So the first theme that I found, which was somewhat surprising, was attending to affect. So attending to students' moods, emotions, and attitudes related to mathematics.
Are we struggling today?
I think we should.
Do we need to check in, or are we in a dark place?
That gotta.
Okay.
Yeah.
Answering it in 5, 4,
So they can enter in through Nearpod, where they can choose between 6 options. I'm great, I'm okay, I'm meh, which usually means we're tired, I'm struggling, I need a check-in, or I'm in a dark place. That way I can see where they're at emotionally and I can do a check-in with them and they know I'm gonna be having a conversation with them later. And then right after that, we do a 1% goal. So what am I gonna do 1% better today? I am going to communicate with my partner more effectively. I am going to raise my hand 1% better. I am going to be positive. I'm gonna have a good attitude. And that's their goal for the entire day. And so we take a second to check in and say, okay, how are we going to do this today? Make a mental check of what you can do. And then from there, we start our math lesson.
These teachers allowed for group reasoning, but they also gave explicit guidance, and they told students the steps to solve problems. Several of the teachers used whiteboards as student resources. So they had their own individual whiteboards that they wrote on instead of paper and pencil, and this just sort of increased engagement, and it also was a form of formative feedback.
I have noticed a huge jump in their self-esteem, in their confidence in math, because we have so much discussion and we talk a lot about how if you're not right the first time, listen to your partner and they can help explain. And together they come to a consensus on an answer or why this works and why this doesn't. And that's a huge self-building practice. It helps them really gain confidence and understanding themselves. So it's not just, this is what I did, this is why. Yep, me too. We lay that foundation that is not a powerful partnership, and that's what we're looking for, is that ability to listen to your partner and respond to their partner.
Teachers used data to inform how they retaught students. So instead of having this sort of rigid form of grading, like the students do the assessment and that's the grade they get, there's nothing you can do, these teachers stated that they always wanted their students to reach proficiencies, and they gave opportunities for that.
Instead of just marking them wrong, we grade them on a scale of like a 1, 2, or a 3. 3 meaning that they have mastered this skill, we're not making any silly mistakes, things like that. And then we look at each skill that is needed to find that concept, and we do a tier 2 instruction for each kid within the grade. We mix them up, we group them according to the skill that they need, and from there, we extend those kids that are doing amazing. We give them something that is within the same realm of what we're doing and extend it further. And then those kids that are struggling, we delve down and focus on just that skill. Like if we're dividing fractions, maybe we won't do mixed numbers. We're working on just multiplying fractions across. Because if they can't multiply them, they're not going to be able to divide them. And we'll focus on that skill until the data shows that they're improving. And then from there, we'll move on to the next concept.
What's exciting about this research is that teachers can easily implement a lot of the practices. So it won't require an overhaul. So teachers can take what they're already doing in their classrooms and they can adapt it slightly. The other thing that's really exciting about this research is that it comes from teachers. Oftentimes in research, we build theory that doesn't come from practice. We build our own theory and then we try it out in schools. But what's great about this project is we took outliers and we learned from their practice, and then that becomes our theory. So I'm excited to see how other teachers implement these practices within their schools and learn about whether it's similarly effective for teachers who implement the practices that were found in this study.
I think confidence is so hard to gain in math, and that's one of our biggest focuses, is we really want the kids to find that joy in math and that success in math, because that's how they learn and grow. Once they start becoming confident with what they can do, they're not as afraid to share.